How can a franchise that sold over 20 million copies just disappear? In the lead up to the release of the original Watch Dogs, an ad was published claiming 2 months are enough to visit Los Santos, come to Chicago November 21st. This would be Grand Theft Auto's next big competitor. 12 years later, Watch Dogs had 3 games and GTA had 0. Grand Theft Auto is said to have the biggest launch in gaming history, and Watch Dogs is reportedly never getting another game. So what happened? Well, sit back, relax, and let me tell you the story of how Watch Dogs self-destructed. Our story begins in 2009 when Ubisoft was working on a new driver game. But at some point in development, someone presumably looked at GTA 4 and said, we can do that. So development shifted to what would later become Watch Dogs. And they didn't want to create just another GTA clone, so they opted to add a major focus on hacking. Watch Dogs would be GTA plus hacking. Usually when I cover games on this channel, there's some sort of internal problem or conflict during their development. That's not the case here. Everything seems to have gone pretty smoothly up until the summer of 2012. 3 years into the game's development, Ubisoft wanted to finally reveal the game to the public in that year's E3. This was before the then next-gen consoles were announced, but we were getting to a point where the PS3 and the Xbox 360 were starting to hit their limits. There was a lot of excitement about what the future of gaming would look like. Ubisoft took all that glee and excitement and gave the world the first trailer for Watch Dogs. The minds of millions across the world had been collectively blown. This was by far the most beautiful game anybody had ever seen. The textures, the animations, you could even feel the wind blowing. And the gameplay wasn't no slouch either. While this trailer was impressive, I remember what had me sold was Watch Dogs' gameplay premiere that went live on February of 2013 that came alongside the reveal of the next-gen consoles. That was impressive. It still kept its incredible graphics, and on top of that, you could control the city from your phone, prevent crimes, and even stop a train to help you escape the police. Everybody immediately bought in, and how could they not? The hype train was full, and what a ride was it about to go on. Little did everybody know that this would turn out to be one of the most controversial marketing campaigns of all time. But Ubisoft obviously believed in this game. So much so that leading up to the release of Watch Dogs, it also published the ad directly setting the battle lines with Grand Theft Auto 5. Funnily enough, the game was delayed from its original November 21st release date all the way to May 26, 2014. How kind of them to give us even more time to visit Los Santos. I would say 8 months are more than plenty. And from the nanosecond you load into Watch Dogs, the problem is obvious. Here's the trailer, and here's actual gameplay. You see it, don't you? There are no dogs. You can't watch what isn't there. On a slightly less important note, the game's graphics were obviously a lot worse than what was shown off with its trailers. People were not happy. We were promised one thing and received something completely different. Now the game still looked fine and even now holds up fairly well, but this was a new franchise and it had started out on the worst possible foot. The weird thing is that a lot of graphical settings were found to be disabled inside the game's files. When enabled, the game looked a lot closer to what we saw in E3, but it was unplayable for almost all devices at the time. Ubisoft also addressed this, basically saying the same thing. The main problem was that the game had to be released for both the PS3 and the 360. But even then, there's like under 10 games that have looked like this in the past 12 years, and none of them were made by Ubisoft. Now, graphics aren't everything. If the rest of the game was great, I think people would be more forgiving of these trailers. Nobody talked about the puddle in Spider-Man after it launched. To be fair to Ubisoft, from a strictly gameplay perspective, everything that was shown off at these trailers were things you could do in-game. It just so happens that in-game, all these things were significantly less fun. You can prevent crimes, but it's based on a weird system where you can only prevent them when the game allows you to. I allowed another person to get shot and still got a successful completion because that's when the game thought was the right time to intervene. You can use a train to escape, but the police helicopter will follow it around until you get off of it. It's like a genie granting you wishes that always come attached with a catch. Hacking the city is fine, we'll talk about it a bit later. But let's back up a bit. Is Watch Dogs a good game? I'd say yes, but the problem is that it was presented as an excellent game and it's nowhere near that. You play as Aiden Pierce, a criminal hacker in Chicago that has adopted a brand new smart city network called CTOS. It controls traffic lights, cameras, power grids, you name it. It also happens to be incredibly easy to hack into. After a job goes sideways, Aiden has a hit put on himself and his family. This results to a hitman killing his 6-year-old niece while going for Aiden. From that point onwards, Aiden decides that he'll fight for revenge and to rid Chicago of the evil that plagues it. He of course keeps killing and stealing, but now it's for a good purpose. Now, I feel like every Ubisoft game has a wheel that includes every single relative and close friend of the protagonist. Ubisoft spins the wheel before its game is made to see who will die to give the protagonist motivation. It was a tired trope then, and it's somehow something that keeps happening in Ubisoft games 12 years later. And Aiden's niece is not his only relative. He also has a sister and a nephew. Very early on in the story, his sister gets kidnapped and he has to do missions for the person that did it in order to keep her unharmed. This would have been fine, except for the fact that Grand Theft Auto San Andreas did that exact same thing a decade before it. I don't think it's the best of ideas to compare yourself to GTA and then rip the story of arguably its most popular game. In general terms though, I like the story of Watch Dogs. I want the good guys to win and the bad guys to lose. Aiden himself feels like a breath of fresh air from all the happy-go-lucky protagonists that we get now. He's grumpy and he's cynical, but while that may seem fresh now, he was a dime a dozen back in 2014. And while I do like the story in general, it never kicks into a higher gear that would elevate it. The entire game seems to be building around Aiden needing to confront the fact that he can't be both a vigilante and keep his family safe. It's also building up to Aiden's family confronting him about his actions. But in the end, Aiden just sends his family to another state and that's that. In the game that makes it very clear that even the most careful people will leave a digital footprint and will be found, it just feels flat. It's like the Dark Knight ending without the ship scene. Yeah, we beat the villains, but what's the point? Where the game really comes into its own is the gameplay. Watch Dogs was made with stealth in mind, and Aiden having a phone that allows him to control the city gives you an actually really solid stealth sandbox. You can easily manipulate the enemy AI with a variety of electronic devices in many fun ways. I loved creating a diversion and then sneaking to the objective unnoticed. The AI is a bit dumb, there's no reason for 10 people to go check a sound they heard at the same time, but it's dumb in a way that makes you feel smart. Hacking a variety of stuff and having the AI react to it does lend itself to making Aiden seem like this master hacker assassin. This is the majority of the missions the game has to offer, but unfortunately not the only missions it has to offer. Watch Dogs also has missions where you chase a car trying to take it down. I liked those, but they can often be boiled down to pressing one button at the right time. And then there's the other missions. This game has some bad mission design. You have missions where you just watch other people through cameras, tailing missions, stealth missions where you lose the moment you get spotted, and of course, tailing missions that are also stealth missions where you lose the moment you get spotted. Of course, you can bypass the latter by watching your target through cameras. Regardless of the main missions, where Watch Dogs really crumbles when compared to GTA 5 is its open world and its multiplayer. Chicago as a vibe is excellent. I loved its dark and gritty atmosphere. Chicago as an open world sucks. It's just a regular Ubisoft world. You go to a place, you do the objective, repeat 100 times. It doesn't reward your curiosity, nor does it feel lived in. Even crimes don't happen organically in front of you, you have to go to them. I know it's more realistic, but we have a hacker with a magic phone that can hack into every electronic device in his vicinity with a single tap of a button. I don't think we have to draw the line on this one. What's really not helping is the driving mechanics. Ubisoft games with driving have always had this as an issue and it's no different here. It feels stiff and collisions don't have the impact they should. Something that I don't see getting talked about enough is the game's multiplayer modes. You have free roam and racing, which I didn't really care about, but then you have hacking and tailing. These two modes both share the fact that you're invading another player's single player world. In one mode, you need to hide until a hack is complete, and in the other, you need to follow them around for a certain amount of time. I really like both of these modes, especially hacking. There's something very novel about disrupting another player's game. I had a lot of fun with it when Watch Dogs came out, and I still had a lot of fun with it now. But here's the problem, and it's not something necessarily a problem with Watch Dogs in and of itself. While these modes are decent new ideas, they do have a limited shelf-life. You can't play the same 2 modes over and over again. Even the game itself has the achievement set at 10 successful completions each. Meanwhile, on the other side, GTA is offering a massive multiplayer experience with constant updates. And that's a wider issue with the game, and this may sound weird, but its content is finite. Even if you're Watch Dogs' #1 fan, complete every single thing the game has to offer, that's about 50 hours of gameplay at best. GTA, on the other hand, is offering its usual single-player experience, plus a full Grand Theft Auto experience that's playable with your friends on top of that. Watch Dogs doesn't have that, and to be crystal clear, that would not have been a problem if they hadn't compared themselves to GTA in the first place. And look, Watch Dogs was going to draw GTA comparisons regardless of anything it did. It's an open world game set in a modern city after all. My problem is A, the overpromising done with the trailers, and B, the advertising campaign which was like, yeah, GTA is fine and all, but have you tried Watch Dogs? It's great for selling copies, but it sets people up for disappointment. Because Watch Dogs sold really well. It sold like water in a desert. At the time, it became the fastest selling Ubisoft game, the fastest selling new IP, and it ended up crossing 10 million lifetime sales. By every metric, these are fantastic numbers. Review scores, on the other hand, tell a different story. The game currently sits at an 80 Metacritic score and a 6.7 user score. A far cry from what people were hyped about. This meant that if Ubisoft wanted to keep these sales, they had their work cut out for them. Heading into the development of Watch Dogs 2, Ubisoft had a problem. Watch Dogs may have sold well, but its reputation was not in a good place. And I think this is partly the reason that for Watch Dogs 2, Ubisoft did a hard pivot away from nearly everything that made the original Watch Dogs. Gone would be the dark streets of Chicago, replaced by the colorful San Francisco. Gone would be the grumpy protagonist, instead replaced by a cheerful gang of hackers. More importantly, gone would be the fake trailers, instead replaced by real gameplay. This time, Ubisoft wanted to avoid every false advertising accusation, which is presumably why they even added dogs that you can watch. Watch Dogs 2 released on November 15th, 2016, and in it, you play as Marcus Holloway, a hacker that gets blacklisted by CTOS that joins a rebellious hacker group called DedSec. This game is very lighthearted. The story revolves around you going around and being a nuisance to big tech companies like the legally distinct Facebook and the legally distinct Google. Marcus and the crew are also pretty enjoyable to be around. None of them are particularly fleshed out though, but as long as the game doesn't ask me to care deeply about them, we're good. Watch Dogs 2, however, does undercut its own lightheartedness in 2 ways. The first way it does that is by having Marcus use actual guns. It feels very out of place for the overall tone of the game. I wish there were more non-lethal options. You can be non-lethal in stealth, but you can't do that in actual combat when you get spotted, and I'm not going as far as restarting the mission to maintain roleplay. The other way that happens is that Horatio, one of the DedSec members, gets killed around halfway through the game. It's again completely out of place, and I didn't care enough about Horatio or any of the DedSec members for it to matter. And everyone seems to forget about it once we move on to the next mission arc, so it felt like pointlessly bringing the mood down. It's like Watch Dogs 2 forgot it's a Ubisoft game and spun the Ubisoft wheel midway through development. In gameplay terms, however, Watch Dogs 2 feels like Watch Dogs +1. All gameplay elements are either improved or added upon. Driving is a lot smoother, the open world has less filler, and you have more tools than ever in stealth. I loved remotely controlling cars and other vehicles, they just add to the chaos that you can cause. I also really like that you can call the police or other gangs on your enemies. You can complete a few missions without lifting a finger. There's also the RC car and drone, which are fine, but they were warning signs for things to come. Then there's the multiplayer. Hacking and tailing made a return, but what I enjoyed the most were the police chases. At random points, the game will dynamically show you a player being chased by the police in your world, and you have to stop them. It happened to me twice while playing, and in one of those times, I made another person rage quit by remotely making his car crash. 10 out of 10 multiplayer experience. Watch Dogs 2 is a good game, there's no doubt in my mind about it. It improved its Metacritic score, and despite low pre-orders, it also managed to surpass 10 million copies sold. It even rid itself of the GTA comparisons. So here you might think, where's the big deal? This is a franchise that has sold over 20 million copies at this point, where's the big story? Who cares if they weren't the best? The bottom line is that they sold well. Watch Dogs 2 is the best game of the trilogy, but it's still far from excellent. It doesn't really have any massive flaws though, but it also doesn't excel anywhere. It's a perfectly competently made game, and ironically, sometimes these are the least memorable ones. As someone who played Watch Dogs 2 a couple months after its release, what always stuck with me about this game wasn't its gameplay, it wasn't San Francisco, but it was Horatius' death feeling completely out of place to the rest of the game. The flaw in a sea of alright. Watch Dogs 2 ticks all the boxes of a traditionally good game, but it doesn't feel like a game that anybody wanted to make. Its tonal pivot felt less like an artistic choice and more like a direct response to people not liking the original. People didn't like the gritty atmosphere? Well, give them a jovial atmosphere. And this bleeds into the story as well. Watch Dogs 2 is very anti-corporation, the precise thing Ubisoft is. It feels less like having something to say and more like giving people what they want to hear. And even subconsciously, I think that affects the overall experience as well. When you come out of a game not really feeling strongly in any particular direction, even if it was well made, how excited will you be for its sequel? Ubisoft was going to have to find a way to fix that, or face a reckoning that was rapidly approaching. With Legion, Ubisoft made yet another pivot. Watch Dogs is the dark one, Watch Dogs 2 is the light-hearted one, and this is the somewhere in between one. It's funnier than Watch Dogs, but not as light as Watch Dogs 2. You play in a futuristic version of London when an oppressive authoritarian regime takes over and it's DedSec's job to stop them. This time, the Ubisoft wheel landed on random DedSec member number 1. Now, you may have noticed that for the previous games, by now I would have told you who you play as. I haven't done so here because you don't play as anyone in particular. You play as randomly generated characters that look atrocious. The concept is that anybody in London can become a part of DedSec. Each character has a different set of abilities. Most of them are frankly useless. You'll need around 2 to 3 characters to finish the game, and the rest is variety for your sanity's sake. I mean, come on, would you rather have the person with a sports car, or the person that can blend in with enemies and also has an LMG in case things go wrong? This just doesn't work. It seems like you have a lot of options when you really don't, and this also ruins the story. Okay, here are all the positive things I have to say about the story. Bagley, the AI robot that helps you out, is really funny. Probably the funniest character in the franchise. Now for the negatives. Everything else. The characters may be different in appearance and abilities, but they all react in the exact same way in story events with the same voice lines. So instead of having multiple characters reacting in different ways, we get essentially one character with lines generic enough to fit everyone. Now this could have maybe worked if the villains were compelling, but they're so uninteresting I couldn't even be bothered to dislike them. However, this whole idea did allow Ubisoft to create an intriguing permadeath mode. I'm pretty sure Legion is designed around it, even if it's not the default option. In theory, if a member of DedSec dies, they stay dead. So not only do characters offer different abilities, but they also work as sort of a life system. If every DedSec member dies, the game is over. In practice, however, Ubisoft is terrified of you losing your run. This is a big budget AAA game after all, and they can't risk you failing. This game shouldn't be called Watch Dogs, it should be called Watch Drone, because that's all you do in Legion. I said each character has unique abilities, but the exception to that rule is the Spider Bot. Everybody gets the Spider Bot and it is broken. In Watch Dogs 2, you had an RC car. It could enter enemy territory and mostly help open up pathways so you could come in and complete the main objective. In Legion, the Spider Bot can complete entire missions for you. And not just 1 or 2 of them, but about 80% of the game. Most of the game can be completed without you having to even step foot in enemy territory. And for the other 20%, you can use a big drone to carry you over every enemy and into your objective. Oh, and if you enter active combat, you hack into drones to defeat the other drones that come after you. It's realistic that a hacker wouldn't want to come anywhere near their enemies, but if it's realism we're after, why not have us sit at home and use a computer? It's realistic, yeah, but it's not fun. I only died once while playing the game, and this is less a testament to my skill and more a showcase of how terrified Ubisoft were of me failing. And when my character died, a friend of that deceased character was waiting right outside the base ready to join the team. Oh man, the game almost became marginally more difficult there, we can't have that happening. And you could tell me that I could choose to not do this, but the game is clearly designed around it. There are pathways specifically made for the spider bot, and there's nothing stopping it from completing every objective. There was also another time where I got heavily injured by a door closing on me and then getting punched in the face, making doors almost as equally deadly as every enemy in the game. If Watch Dogs 2 is Watch Dogs +1, Legion is Watch Dogs -1. Even the little things feel off. The few sections where you get classic Watch Dogs gameplay feel less smooth, there's a new fist fighting mechanic that couldn't be more unsatisfying if it tried, and the driving sucks. Every car is electric now, and every car feels like driving a toy. I don't think there's a single car in Legion that's fun to drive. They even removed dogs from the game. Legion was not received well, especially by the fans. It's also the only game in the franchise to not sell 10 million copies. We don't know the exact number, but we know Ubisoft were not happy with it. So much so that they reportedly pulled the plug on the franchise. A later report contradicted that, saying that a night mode is being worked on by Ubisoft for Watch Dogs Legion. What is night mode, you might ask? Great question, because I have no clue. I guess it's Legion with the brightness turned down? At this point, just let it go. Legion's release was 7 years removed from Grand Theft Auto 5's launch. We can be very generous and call the original Watch Dogs unlucky due to it releasing a few months after that all-devouring behemoth. We can be generous and call Watch Dogs 2 unlucky for having to deal with the broken trust from the first game. But Legion just messed everything up. It tried an interesting experiment and failed. And they say it's better to swing big and fail, but Legion doesn't even fully commit to the swing. Just ideas that are good on paper that are explored in the shallowest way possible. The floor was theirs. Nobody's releasing crime sandboxes anymore. You can say that they competed with GTA Online, but it's not the same as getting a new curated story. People want this type of game. They want new stories in this type of environment. It's why there's hype for every single game that remotely resembles a crime sandbox. And Watch Dogs was the franchise with the biggest team, the biggest budget, and after a certain point, had their own way to release without the looming shadow of GTA. And they couldn't do it. GTA 6 is releasing soon, and there's no way anybody's releasing another big budget crime sandbox anytime soon. It's hard to derive a lesson from this other than the obvious make better games. But I will say this. A lot of Watch Dogs feels like it was designed with a philosophy that someone else did it, so we can do it too. It seems more like a game designed to take a portion of the market share than a game anybody wanted to make. Its most memorable part are its trailers. It doesn't feel like there's any attention to detail, any care to reward players' exploration. In contrast, the Yakuza games are made with a fraction of the budget, yet the love and care that's put into them is infectious, Kiwami 3 notwithstanding. This is where we are now. Watch Dogs now a mere memory of what could have been. A decade-long journey spent to compete with the best of the best, only to be defeated without anybody else lifting a single finger. Watch Dogs was the master of its own demise. Thank you for watching the video, and thank you for 700 subscribers as well. You guys seem to be enjoying these longer deep dives, and I hope I can keep providing them for you. If you want to watch the story of another crime sandbox franchise that never reached its potential, you can click here for the entire history of the first 3 Mafia games. I'll see you in the next one.